Good morning, and welcome to UUCC, Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. We are a group of spiritual freethinkers who gather to celebrate life, build community, and better the world. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I'm Pat Mells, your worship associate for this morning, and our guest minister today is Pamela Dayton. The service is also being live streamed to our YouTube channel. We will plan on continuing with hybrid worship services throughout the church year, so you can join us each week here in person, on Zoom, or YouTube, as you prefer. If this is your first visit, welcome. We invite you to sign the visitor's book in the entryway, and whether it's your first visit or your 1,000th, we are glad that you came. I have a few announcements to share with you today. Please wear a mask. Masks are available for anyone who forgot one. RE and childcare will be provided this morning by Nancy and Kaya. We will be collecting the cards for Joys and Sorrows after our first hymn. Please fill them out or type into the chat box on Zoom if you have something you would like to share. Are there any other announcements? Nancy?
I just wanted to announce my joy that we now have a full-time Sunday school assistant, Kaya Mells. She's in the back. Kaya, thank you. It's going to be wonderful to have you there every week, giving some consistency to our childcare and RE program. So thank you very much, and thank you to the board.
Is there anything else? As we prepare to be fully together, I remind you to silence your phones and devices. We now enter a space of worship. Isabel and Oren are going to come up and help light the chalice. I invite you to join with me in our chalice lighting words as the flame is lit. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration life we share together. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Pamela Dayton. I'm a friend of Reverend Eileen, and I am so glad to be here with you today. My opening words are full of gratitude today. Honestly, the weather, the beautiful colors, even the fields that are mowed are beautiful. And I don't know, I'm just super grateful for the world today. Amen. Oh, I'm introducing a hymn. Number 151, I Wish I Knew How.
We are a community that holds one another in our celebrations and in our pain. We welcome you to share your joys and sorrows by writing them down on the card you found on your chair and placing it in the basket when it comes to you, or by typing in the chat box in Zoom. Know that whatever your heart is holding today, whether shared or not, we are with you. Now is the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts of both time and money support the church in its work. Each week, we'd like to spotlight a group or committee, thank them for their gift of time, and invite others who are interested to join them in supporting our church and its programs. This week, the group is Team 6. Team 6 is our social and environmental committee. They work on a variety of projects in the community, from cleaning up the roadside on 5 and 20 to migrant issues, climate issues. So if you're interested in learning more about Team 6, you can talk to Michelle Chapla. I don't see her here today, but she's your contact. And how many other people have been involved in that? Maybe interested parties could talk to you. Danielle and Thomas are very active. I'm a little bit active. So, okay. So anyway, on to the collection. 1/4 of our plate collection for the harvest season goes to Habitat for Humanity, an organization that builds strength, stability, and self-reliance through shelter. You can give to this morning's offering by placing cash or a check into the basket, or if you are joining us from home, by visiting canandaiguauu.org/connection/donate, or mailing a check to UUCC at 3024 Cooley Road, Canandaigua, New York, 14424. In either case, make a note that your gift is intended for today's offering. We now gratefully accept the offering. We have a few joys and sorrows. Karen Alvarez's thoughts are with her mom, who is in the hospital at the moment. Gigi shares that Jack Waterman, the son of the grandson, and also his mom was a former member early on, the Bradleys, is in remission, which is fantastic news. He's been fighting a kidney condition, kidney cancer, for a long time for a 4-year-old anyway. Carrie Graff was joyful at the sunset last night at the jump off at Ontario Park, and also going to a concert and dancing at Plowshares with Bob Henry and the Goners, I guess was the group, huh? Okay, he's the fiddle player? No, wrong Henry. Okay, and Oren, don't worry, your mask I know is hot, but it'll be okay, all right? Hang in there. Okay. At this time, if there are any children who would like to go down to RE, please, you can join Nancy and Kaya at this time.
I invite us all now to take a moment of silence to prepare for the word. I have some stories for you this morning. Once upon a time, there was a powerful king. This king was the most powerful king in the whole entire world. The king's army was shipped across every sea by his great armada. And when the army reached the new land, it unloaded all of its guns and cannons and waged war on the people who already lived there. The king's army fought until the people surrendered. And when they did, the army forced them into enslavement. Ships continued to sail back and forth between the powerful king's kingdom and the conquered lands. Citizens of the kingdom would move their entire households to the conquered lands, and for a while, they were really terrible at living in the new colony because of the weather and the food that was available to them, and the bugs and the snakes, and because really, the new colony was nothing like the powerful king's kingdom. One day, the powerful king realized that it was super expensive to keep tabs on all of his colonies. So he told his government to make up some taxes so that the colonies would effectively pay for themselves. This particular set of colonies was very, "Hoo boy, you must be dreaming." And they said enough is enough and committed to fighting for 5 to 7 years, or until the king realized it was too much trouble to continue to be the boss of these colonies. Have you heard that story before? I have another one. Once upon a time, on a hot summer afternoon, a Black kid who just graduated high school was walking in the street in a quiet neighborhood with a friend when a police officer pulled up behind the teenagers. The police officer got out of his car, and somehow he and one of the teenagers got into a physical altercation. the officer shot the teenager 6 times. The shot that killed the teenager was to his head. The teenager's body was left in the street, in the sun and the heat, for 4 hours. 4 hours after he was killed. The following day, the Black community in this particular city showed up with the rage of generations. They said, enough is enough. And much of that city burned to the ground. And then we have a similar story here in our neck of the woods. Once upon a time, a man traveled hours and hours from his home to visit his brother. While he was at his brother's house, he had a very bad mental health episode and ran from his brother's home out into the street. It was winter and the temperature was below freezing and the man was naked and barefoot. The man's brother called 911 to ask for help, but when the police found the man, they tackled him and pinned his naked body to the asphalt. They put a hood over his head and put no effort whatsoever into being compassionate. The man died that night. And the story of his murder was kept hidden for 6 months. Have you heard that one? This story happened in Rochester on March 23rd, 2020. An organized protest began after the body cam footage was released September 2nd, 2020. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Because I love a good list. Anybody else love a good list? I can't exist without one. I have a list of 3 things that happen when we say enough is enough. First, saying enough is enough sets a boundary. Second, to say enough is enough is to stand in solidarity. And third, saying enough is enough declares a sacred space. Let's start with setting boundaries. I'm going to tip my hand a little bit here and tell you straight up that setting and maintaining boundaries is hard work. It's so hard to train ourselves, to train other people, to treat us the way we want to be treated. And it can be really scary to tell somebody when they've crossed over that line. All of this over here is fair game, but here is off limits, and you just better not. The second point is that saying enough is enough informs others that we see what is happening over there to those people who are not us. And that, yes, we are going to choose a side. We have chosen a side, and the side we choose is justice. We stand with the poor and the powerless and the oppressed and the disenfranchised. We see what's happening to those people, and we choose to take our privilege and the power that we have and use it for the good of others. Is there risk in choosing the side of people who are being hurt? Yes. Does it get easier with practice? Also, yes. The third point is that saying enough is enough declares a sacred space where the inherent value and dignity of all people is protected. For me, the third point is kind of the sum of the first 2. I have this particular boundary, and also I am invested in using my privilege and power to not only reinforce this boundary for me, but also to reinforce the boundary that the other people who are being hurt has. Because this is my sacred commitment to do justice. I do this because it's how I understand my commitment to the divine and my participation with humanity. So we get those 3 points. Yeah. Feeling good about that? No, someone shook their head no. Okay. It is tough, right? And spoiler alert, there's one more thing. Saying enough is enough isn't, well, it's not enough. We have to actually do enough is enough out there in public where people can see us. Standing in solidarity and creating a safe space sometimes involves joining people and their rage. And sometimes it requires that we just hold up a light, real light or metaphorical light, and that we hold up our thing that I can't remember what it's called that you talk into. Bullhorn was the thing I was thinking for. Thank you. We hold it up to their mouths and amplify their rage with our privilege. I have a good friend who's a Presbyterian pastor. She's okay. And she invited me to speak at an event being held in her city. You see, there's a group called, brace yourselves, White Lives Matter. And it's made up of white people who not only believe they matter the most, but they have the hoods to prove it. And they wear them in public in 2022. This group has been identified by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group. And they are not only hosting rallies to recruit new members, they also do a little light vandalism on the side. My friend's church responded to these rallies and this defacement by having a community picnic where several people spoke about responding to the active hatred of the white supremacists. I was the last speaker, and the others had covered the 3 points of my sermon today. They set boundaries, they chose a side, and they talked about the inherent value and dignity of all people. The only thing left to say then and today is this: be brave and do the hard thing. My kids roll their eyes when I say, we are awesome when we do hard things. I think they want me to have drop a quarter every time I say that. We are awesome when we do hard things. It's true. Be brave and awesome and do the hard thing. And people, I have fantastic news for you. Being brave starts out by being scared and afraid and terrified. If you can go out there in that big old world and do the dang thing easily and free from anxiety, well, Godspeed and good for you, my friends, because wow, that is not the experience everybody has. You can't be brave if you're not scared first. And if you're scared and you power through it and you do the dang thing that's so hard, that's exactly what being brave looks like. Quaking in your boots, awesome. Taking that first step is brave. Do you feel like you might be choking on your heart and your throat? Brilliant. Swallow hard and get out there, you brave person. We live in a time that requires us to declare enough is enough at least once a day. Russia is doing its level best to reduce Ukraine to piles of rubble in order to coerce the rest of the world into a third world war. There are many millions of refugees in every corner of the globe. Global warming is basically ruining the environment. Transgender children are being prohibited from getting gender-affirming medical care in some states. Governors of border states, looking at you, Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis, sent migrants to Martha's Vineyard and to the vice president's house. In addition to planning and executing the January 6th insurrection, it was announced that the most recent former president had declassified documents about China and Iran's missile systems seized from his golf club. And here in Monroe County, the county executive opposes a redistricting map that establishes 5 Black majority voting districts. All this happens because it's the day that ends in Y. And for that same exact reason, because it's still the day that ends in Y, Black and brown people in this country, county, and state are incarcerated at disproportionately higher rates than white folks. If you watch television, You may have seen a commercial or two about the upcoming midterm elections. Maybe? It's possible that there have been more than two, but I had to stop counting. The next round of elections happens in a couple of weeks. In addition to local elections, which have a very direct impact on our communities, every seat in the House of Representatives is up for election. 435 people who make the laws for the country are about to be elected or booted. I would be way out of my lane to tell you how to vote. And honestly, I don't have any interest in doing that, but I want to encourage you to think about your vote as an extension of your faith. Do your political views align with what you believe? Do any of the candidates' positions align with what you believe? Are any of their positions in conflict with your faith? And if so, are you ready to say enough is enough and make the brave decision to make a different choice? Saying enough is enough helps us to create a safe space that is desperately needed by so many people. Underprivileged and underserved communities have been shouting from the rooftops since the beginning of time. And here in this country, they've been doing it since before we were a twinkle in the king's eye. Setting the boundaries, plus standing in solidarity, plus naming sacred space is not just important work. It's a moral imperative that we can fulfill by working together. And I have a little poem that I found that is really beautiful. It's by someone called Barry Middleton. I've had enough. I shiver, but I am not cold. It's not about my fears. A shudder runs throughout the land of burning, echoed tears. Troubles weigh upon our world. The stars are blacked tonight. A dark and frightened demon roams the mob, disputes his right. The tear gas drifts in every street. The cops have done their best, and yet the hate must overwhelm and many fail the test. How long before we mobilize, and who will call the bluff? When will Americans arise to say they've had enough? Amen. my benediction for you is go out and be afraid and go out further. Step out in strength and love. Amen. The closing hymn is from the Teal hymnal. That's number 1007. There's a river flowing in my soul.
Please join me in our words for extinguishing the candle. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.